Light duty.
It's much.
To all the folks out there who have been subscribed to Spark.N.Stride and supporting us on YouTube, so I just want to say thank you, and please continue to support the channel. Please continue to hit subscribe, and let's see how far we can go with this Spark.N.Stride. So, Brighde, thank you again for being here. We started to kind of get into a conversation before, and I'm like, please, like this is just way too good. So, what training did you just go take?
So I just did a Qigong training. So that's like the latest of many different modalities in just teaching wellness and doing energy work for personal development, for team empowerment.
Wow. Now, is this something that you knew about, or is this something that you kind of like had to go find?
This is a little bit of synchronicity, to be honest. It's something I've been interested in that I didn't know anything about, and yet have kind of been doing automatically to some extent. So I'm a Reiki master and definitely work in the energy realm when I work with clients one-on-one. That said, this was sort of like, I need to do something fun this summer. What's my adventure going to be?
Okay.
And suddenly this just kind of popped up and was like fit time-wise, and literally one of those things like, all right, how am I going to take on all this work? How am I going to get through it? And at the last minute, like, I don't know if I can do it. I need I need the spark. I need the adventure first.
Okay.
Then all of a sudden, like, turn on my computer, email pops up from Omega and was like, come see Robert Peng and do this Qigong training. And all of a sudden I was like, yeah.
Really?
That's it. That's it. So in June, signed up for it, was super excited. And then that made it much easier to be like, of course I have to say yes to all these awesome opportunities coming up work-wise. And I mean, the training, I could spend the whole podcast talking just about all that I learned, but it was probably one of the most life-shifting experiences I've ever had. It was awesome.
So I want to peel the onion back on that just a bit. But before we get into, we deep dive, I just want to be completely transparent in the sense that I do not know much about this area. Mm-hmm. So I would like to learn as much as possible. And I'm sure there are other folks that are going to be listening that kind of like feel the same way, right?
Totally.
So what I am familiar with is yoga in the sense that I know how to spell it. But I don't. I am not a yogi by any means. It's something that's on my to-do list.
Yeah,
I have a checklist, and I've been,
love it,
expeditiously checking away on things. So, yoga is on my list to learn.
Yep.
I think I'm going to start within the next few weeks. There's a place down the street from us that not just opened up. It's been open for a while. Hot yoga.
Nice.
So for someone like myself who is going to embark on this journey to learn yoga, right? How does what you just mentioned kind of flow? Because I'm just really intrigued.
Yeah.
So can you
definitely
help me out?
For sure. And I feel like for someone who doesn't know anything about yoga or energy work under the umbrella of wellness, if you will, I don't know. I tend to speak in stories. So I was a 2-sport college athlete without stretching after every practice. Like, I'd come home from lacrosse and it was like, if I don't take this 10 minutes just to like physically stretch, I'm not like going to be able to walk across campus by the time, I sit down and finish homework or whatever. So stretching became the like only modality that would just get you from practice to practice. That led to like, oh, maybe there is something here just on a physical reset level that got me going to yoga classes. Then you begin to learn the science of it. Then, often people bring a spiritual connotation into it, and there certainly is, for sure. And yet, at the root of all of it, at least for me, is this idea of bodyfulness, which comes down to connecting the mind as part of the body, as opposed to like mind, body, spirit as 3 different entities. It's kind of like it's one flow. Like, the goal is learning how to connect all 3 of those, and just learning as many different ways as you can to do that. So yoga is a physical way to enter into slowing the mind down, connecting with the breath, connecting with the body, that automatically resets spiritual, but spiritual meaning like just your inner energy. And then that from a lens of bodyfulness, which just means like somatic awareness, like what's your nervous system telling you? We tend to listen to just the brain. This is more like, what's my body telling me? Like there's a whole nother somatic story going on all the time. So yoga is a user-friendly, quick way in to like physically move the body, to slow the mind down, to actually get a little deeper into your nervous system or your gut or your core or your spirituality. Like it kind of can ripple all the way down depending on how far you want to go with it. And then that opens up lots and lots of other stories.
I'm forgive me if I'm bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah, no, totally.
I'm just triggered by different things that you're saying. So you played 2 sports, you said, and that was lacrosse and
tennis.
Lacrosse
Random
and tennis.
connection, but yes.
Okay. So did you go away for school?
I did. I went to Hobart and William Smith, upstate New York.
Okay.
Loved it. Was able to go abroad, play 2 sports, choose my major. Probably would have done things major-wise maybe a little differently. But I feel like I got to do a little bit of everything, which,
At what age did you go away for, at what age did you graduate high school and go into college?
18,
Okay.
I want to say, yeah.
What was that like for a young woman to go off to school and start something new? You know, were you
Great question.
Were you worried? Well, not worried. Were you nervous?
No, honestly, no. And looking back, I absolutely no regrets. Hobart is an awesome school, fairly there wasn't a huge lifestyle switch outside of like leaving home. It was a small community. I was still playing my sports. So it felt like a lot of similarities kind of, again, rippled into that next experience. That said, it would have been awesome to do something radically different. Like it was almost just kind of like the next step forward, as opposed to like, hey, let's hit pause. Let's like analyze, who are you? Where are you? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And do you want to do something different? It was just like, this makes sense. It's just the ball kind of kept rolling forward and I didn't think twice about it.
Okay.
Wouldn't change it.
Right.
Would encourage other people at 18 to take that pause to say, do I do a gap year? Do I work for a year? Do I roll right into school? You know, like, look at things a little differently, where we tend to just kind of keep rolling with it. But so glad I did, for sure.
What do you think kept you rolling? I mean, was it just like the expectation from your family, or just in general, like, was that the blueprint already? I think sometimes we go with the blueprint.
For sure.
Right?
I would say major blueprint, for sure. And at the time, had no concept of that. It was just like, I'm blessed to say that's what you do. Yeah. You know, it was an expectation. And I think at that point, like, sports defined so much of who I was and what I did. And it was an opportunity to keep doing the thing that I loved. So why wouldn't I? Like, I never even thought twice about it. So I didn't feel an expectation. It was probably never verbally said, like, you must do this. I probably never even knew that there was a choice not to be honest. And how lucky am I to get to say that? Yeah. And for me, it was like, oh, cool. I get to keep playing lacrosse. And honestly, got to college, and my lacrosse coach was the one that was like, oh, you play tennis. Why don't you go talk to the tennis coach? And he was new, and he's like, you can try out. I don't know how it's going to work to play, like, because tennis is a fall and spring sport, and lacrosse is spring, but trains in the fall. So it was kind of like, I don't know how that overlap is going to work, but tennis coach was great and was like, I mean, you can try out. We'll see what happens. And I ended up playing number 1 singles and doubles, but it was just a great opportunity and experience. Wow. But
so hold on, because like have a I'm
lots
just,
there.
like I'm just going through these things in my mind. So you train when exactly for? Can you break that down? Kind of. Can you break it down in terms of like? I'm assuming you start August, late August. Can you just run me through what the year's like?
Totally. So it's funny. My sister is a phenomenal tennis player, and if she listens to this, I'll give her the shout out. Hillary, awesome. And I think as a kid, it was like, I'm just gonna beat her in tennis. Like that was like the main goal. Lacrosse was my passion. I truly remember it started my freshman year in high school, right at Manasquan, and RAD had a meeting and was like, "Hey, there's this new thing called lacrosse. Like, who wants to?" Like, no one knew.
Really,
there was no club. There was nothing. I mean,
what year is this?
96.
Wow.
Maybe?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, if I graduated in 2000. Yeah, so 1996, brand new. At least I didn't know about it. No one really in my immediate circles. It was like, sure, we'll try something new. And I remember first practice, like passing, catching, and like just found this rhythm and was like, wow, this is awesome. And one of my friends was like, have you done this before? And it wasn't about being like athletic. It was just like, no, I think I just found my thing though. Like it was natural. It was fluid. So to circle back to your question, from that moment on, lacrosse was the thing for sure. And not from a place of passion, most importantly, training. There was no club. It wasn't like I played lacrosse all year long, but I played lacrosse all year long. If I had a spare moment, you're throwing around in the backyard, you're going to college games, which, it was like Princeton was on fire at the time. And you were just like, wow, I can't wait to be that. So as far as going to college, I did lacrosse all year long and I trained for tennis probably really hard in the summer. And then, went right into training for fall ball. Fall ball, I missed. Hold on, let me get my timeline straight here.
Yeah.
So trained all summer really hard for tennis, but continued to play lacrosse on my own, hanging out again. No club, no leagues, nothing like that.
Okay.
Get to college, play all fall tennis. I remember sitting on the tennis court. We're on like the top of the hill, and like lacrosse team was playing on the like grass field below, and it was always sort of like, I love tennis, but bummer, it'd be really fun to be down there with those guys. And then tennis would end in like November-ish. And from that moment on, it was like stick was in my hand through basically the start of tennis again in
summer.
August. Wow. So, yeah.
Wow. When you mentioned earlier about having choice, like having a choice, I'm really curious to see what this next generation does in terms of choice, because it's different than what we've experienced as young adults.
Big time.
Right. So what I was going back to before in terms of like, was there a blueprint?
Yeah.
There was a blueprint, right? However, now I feel like there's many blueprints. And it's just like, which one are you going to pick up? What route are you going to go down? The expectation of going off to a 4-year school or a 4-year university. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, for the, I guess I'm referring to Generation Alpha, which is like my daughter's generation.
Yeah.
She's 6, that kind of thing. We were invested. Oh man, I'm going to get blown up in the comments for this. I forget what the college fund is, the actual, what is properly called. And I should know this. But what I do know is that we decided to stop paying into that. And we actually just started a trust and a different sort of an investment fund for her.
Awesome.
Because what we came to learn was that if she does not decide to go off to school, that money is just locked. You can't do anything with that money.
Right.
So, in, I don't know, like 12 years from now, if she doesn't decide that she wants to go off to school, like what happens with that money is just kind of like sitting there.
Yep.
So we decided to like go into like a different sort of a fund. And because also I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the fun gets aggressive in the very beginning, and as it gets closer to your child going off to school, it gets less aggressive, right? In terms of like how they invest. And again, I am not by any means a financial analyst. This is not my realm, but this is just kind of like what I've come to learn. So that's why we decided not to pursue putting in, because I think we were already in like 3 years or 4 years. So we stopped. It's still gaining interest. We're just not putting any more into it. We're going into like a different fund.
Yeah.
Simply because we just have no clue what the transition is going to be for this next generation, right? So
absolutely. And that could go in so many different directions in all the best ways. And, in a overly simplified level, because of internet and everything like that, you can learn from home. You can do so much. You don't, previously it's like college was its own experience because it had to happen on the campus. And if you weren't on the campus, that was all you had.
Right.
Now this could be your classroom. Your classroom can be anywhere. So you can gain access to curriculum, to teachers, to anything far easier than you could in the past. That's kind of one side of it. Also, go try other things, right? Like go explore, take that gap year, whether that's travel, whether that's work, whether that's like really find out what you want to study, if at all, like get experience,
right.
That's going to go pretty far over time. And, that's again, coming back to flow, that's the essence of teaching: communication, trust, resiliency. And that's what life is all about, so that's getting back to the roots of what I'm trying to create with flow. Like get out there. Without experience, you can't learn all those life lessons. For me, sport is a playful way to learn those lessons when highlighted in a, intentional realm. Obviously going to college or working, those are bigger, far more important opportunities to learn those lessons and live into them. But, play the sport so that when you get to make those bigger decisions and those kind of more crucial moments in life, not to say you're more prepared, but at least you've been there before. You have the opportunity to kind of look at choice differently or recognize choice, kind of break from the blueprint, if you will.
I like that.
Yeah.
What was your spark with flow? Like what sparked that?
So
I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much time do we have? So because lacrosse didn't exist here, my sophomore year in high school, my mom looked at me and was like, why don't you run lacrosse camps? And I was like, I don't know anything about lacrosse. Like my coach was great, but he was the math teacher at the school and, nobody knew anything. My mom was like, well, a 5th or 6th grader doesn't know that you don't know what you're talking about if you can just teach them to pass and catch. I was like, great point. Let's go.
Yep.
So I started running lacrosse camps, honestly, as like a sophomore in high school. Fast forward that next 2 years, all through college, I ran camps. I started a women's league, started indoor league. So I got a lot of lacrosse generated in this area 100 years ago. Basically, again, this is way before club or any of that existed. So kind of got the ball rolling in all those different realms. And so the root to your question is I've been coaching for my whole life in different capacities. When I graduated college, I ended up becoming a college coach. I stayed at William Smith, coached for a year, loved it, yet it was incredibly difficult. And that's actually when I took that gap year. It was like, whoa, what am I doing here? I need to hit pause. Let me create different experiences and not just kind of stay in the same blueprint, if you will. And I actually volunteered. Katrina had just hit, like we talked about last time.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes.
So volunteered for Katrina. And then I did a NOLS course, which is the National Outdoor Leadership School. So that's when I spent like 3 months kayaking and living out of my kayak. And essentially it's survival. So those two experiences were like, oh, this is where sport has led me in essence of, okay, the X's and O's, that's one part of the sport, and survival, communication, trust, resiliency, that for me is now what sport is all about. So when I, after that experience, was actually going to go work for Knowles, my college coach calls and is like, please, we need an assistant. It's like, no, like I think I'm good on the X's and O's side. Get another phone call, and in short, I ended up going out to Pomona Pitzer to coach lacrosse and get my master's in leadership. That synchronicity just kind of came together. It was like the universe was knocking on my door. It's like, oh, I thought I was gonna go this way. This is too good of an opportunity not to take, and so spent the next 3 years. Actually 4 years, learning leadership, getting my master's, and coaching. I was the first varsity coach for Pomona Pitzer at the collegiate level. Amazing opportunity, and yet the leadership piece was helping me learn how to take the essence of sport and bring it back into life. And that was the spark for flow. This idea of like, sports are great, yet they're teaching us life lessons, and how do we intentionally harness that in a playful yet meaningful way? So that was the beginning of the dream. I finished out in California, moved back home with this idea of starting flow. That's my college coach called again and was like, we need an assistant. Come on up. And I was like, oh man. And Hobart had just started a leadership program. She's like, you can teach in the leadership center and coach. I was like, okay. Again, opportunities knocking, like, let's go for it. So I spent the next 5 years coaching there and ultimately became the head coach after 2 years. So just an incredible honor to transition out. My head coach was legendary in the sport. Truly learned more from her than most other people. She's definitely one of like the masters in my life. And I was so blessed to have worked with her to retire out. Such an incredible honor. And at a certain point was like, oh, if I stay here any longer, now it becomes about the coaching. Now it's my program. That's not the dream. You know, I feel like I was where I needed to be in the time where I needed to be there. And that was like, got to take this jump for flow and bring the leadership, the outdoor ed, and wellness had kind of been integrating throughout all of that. So yoga was a big piece. Meditation was kind of creeping in throughout this outdoor ed and sport piece. So after 5 years of coaching, which was at this point 9 years ago, I moved back home to New Jersey to start this idea that had just been bubbling for years over all these different experiences. And I was like, yeah, again, how do I bring sport, leadership, and wellness together with the mission of building empowerment through play to learn how to bring your skills back to your team? Your team being 2 or more people working together for a common goal. So it doesn't have to be sports team. That could be your family, your classroom, your coworkers. And, 9 years later, I've worked with over 300 different teams. I've worked with everyone from Girl Scouts to Google. And yeah, it's been amazing. And as COVID kicked in, the team piece kind of came to an abrupt halt, and the leadership, the wellness piece really has continued to grow in that I went back and got a MindBody Therapy certification, got my Reiki master, or trained to become a Reiki master. And that's kind of coming full circle, bringing the Qigong in, yoga, meditation, all these different elements of wellness to get back to this idea of bodyfulness, which again is aligning mind, heart, core for self-empowerment. That's kind of where the shift from like team building culture and team. Now as we're sort of coming out of COVID, it's a lot more one-on-one and a lot more of that idea of bodyfulness.
Wow.
So that's the long-winded version of
the spark. I love it. I absolutely love it. Listen, Who was the first person you told about? Who was the first person you told flow about? Did I say that right?
Yeah, with you.
Yeah.
That's an awesome question. Gosh, I don't know if I could name one person. I know that it just kind of percolated for a long time. And I'm thinking of one of my college roommates who was very artistic and, big dreamer in
Right.
all the best
Yes.
ways. And I was like,
Yes.
yeah, I think she was the first one that was like, this idea of like, actually, the name is going to be Flow. This is the vision. For a while, all my friends are like, oh, of course it's Brighde. Like, of course she's out there trying some random adventure. Where are you going now? What are you doing next?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you never know. It's most people, first response. It's not like, how are you? It's like, so where in the world are you? Like,
Right.
what are you doing now? We can't keep track of you.
that.
My friend Rachel was probably the first one that I was like, it's going to be called Flow. I don't know how it's going to evolve or how to create it, from a business perspective, but this is what's going to happen.
Do you remember the setting? Like kind of like where you were?
I had actually moved home. I had moved back to New Jersey at that point, and it was sort of,
So it was on the phone.
Yeah, it was on the phone. It was on the
Okay.
phone,
All right.
and she had just sent me like just papers, like more kind of like journals in essence, and they had these like geese flying across the top, and it was like something along the lines of like follow your dream. So I think I called her to be like, thanks for the stationery / journal, knowing that I was in transition in life, and she was like, Brighde, I know how you operate. I know you love to talk. Write it down.
Write it down.
Like, just get it out of your head and turn thought into action.
Yep.
Basically. And it was like, yeah.
Yeah.
One, thanks for listening. Two, thanks for the push. And that was part of the let's go.
That's so in line with Spark.N.Stride.
Yeah.
Like so in line.
I love it.
Spark, the idea, thinking outside the box, staying motivated, and then the stride part, putting it in motion.
Yeah,
Right. Like
no doubt.
writing it down, getting it out of your head and, and just seeing what comes of it.
Yeah.
And I think that is like such an inspiring story for many people because how many folks can relate to that? Like,
Totally.
I can't tell you how many times I've had all different sorts of ideas. And the reason why I ask you, who did you mention it first to is because what I learned was until I had all of my ideas out that I can show, what would tend to happen is for whatever reason, maybe it's the folks were being candid or just being open, but a lot of times the ideas would get shot down or made me to feel in a sense belittled because this was like why, like what are you gonna do, what, like how are you gonna do that, right? So with this, a little different. My the way I went about it was different. So I wrote everything down. I really did tons of research and kind of formulated it in my mind, my journey map. What does it look like? What's it gonna sound like? Who's my target audience? Who do I want to reach? Right? Instinctively, I want to reach everyone because I feel like I'm an affable person and anyone who gets a chance to really know me and can that I can relate to so many different folks. A lot of that has to do with my time in the military, being able to travel to different countries and understand culture and just culture within an enterprise itself, right? Because the military brings so many different people from so many different backgrounds together. I was like, man, I can really echo this message of wellness, mental health, resiliency, and personal development. I'm going to do it this way. Awesome. And I really like, so that's why I was asking you, who was the first person that you brought this to, was anyone, was everyone supportive or was,
gosh, to this day, more people are like, so when are you going to get a job? When are you going to find that 9 to 5? That back to that idea of the blueprint. Like, I'm 41, single, did just finally lucky enough to land in my own home, but it's, I've been traveling and all over the place, and I'm far from sticking to the blueprint at this point. And, that's often out of love and concern of like, can't you just like, when are you going to settle? When are you going to find your roots? And I have my roots. I truly feel like the wellness element, those are my roots. Learning and following this passion and this desire to serve others and help other people find their inner strength. And so, yeah, that's the core. And as long as I'm doing that, to me, it doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. Honestly, it's never been about, hey, I want to run my own business. I want to be an entrepreneur. And if this project doesn't work, I'll leave it and move on to the next, or I'm going to crush it, sell it, move on to the next. From a business perspective, I have no idea what I'm doing. That said, it's the spark. It's following my passion. And far more importantly than that, really, truly trying to be in service of others and helping other people find their wellness, reconnect their own energy, and then bring that to their team, to other people in their lives. So as long as I feel like I'm doing that, it's okay when the majority of my family is like, so what are you going to do? When are you going to, settle down, get married, have kids, get the 9 to 5, do the blueprint? You're like,
I have a different blueprint.
I have a different blueprint, and I love it, and it's fun, and I'm alive and feel so blessed to be on this path, and never know what tomorrow's going to bring, and that's the best part.
I really love that, man. I think sometimes in terms of like being connected, the blueprint, what you're following, it's ultimately your vibration, right? Totally. So you're vibrating on just a different level, than most, right? Because call it, there's nothing wrong with whatever journey someone's on. I think it's important to just support them on that journey. Yeah. But you're just vibrating on something totally different. Yeah. That we need to get on board with, because I think it goes a long way. And I'm, unfortunately for myself, being in the military 24 years, you're kind of like, you're vibrating on a different kind of frequency because that's what's needed of you. Transitioning outside of that and just really trying to focus on myself and my well-being, the betterment of myself, so I can be better for the folks that are around me. And I've mentioned it before on the podcast, trying to like I mentioned before, trying to learn yoga. I think there's absolute benefits to my well-being once I make that connection. What holds me back is I can get really focused on something. And I know that the minute I get focused, the minute that door is open, I'm all the way in. Like both feet on the ground, I'm running in that direction. So I don't want to half-ass it, right? Just I want to make sure that I'm going to commit. So no, that's great. I wanted to ask you something regarding forgot. Sorry. Don't worry about it. We can edit it out.
No, I love it. And just to that point, that's, I there's the whole idea of like energy and vibration. And that's, for me, there's the Qigong and the Reiki. Some people buy in, and for others, that's a lot. And yet at the end of the day, we are all energy. I won't get into that. That's a whole nother probably conversation. But this idea of like, having to do things right, having to be all in is awesome. It creates change. It gets stuff done. And we need that, right? Especially, oh my God, in the military, can't even imagine. That's life or death. Totally different scenario than like, I'll leave that there. But
totally.
Wellness, when it comes to wellness, people think it's like you have to be all in. And yet if it becomes a lifestyle, like wellness as a lifestyle, it's about balance versus being all in. And you always have choice trying to like, you break it down in so many different directions. But what I really want to get to is like self-care is not selfish. Like you are only as good to others as you are to yourself. And I think that often gets lost. Like I have to do everything for my kids. And absolutely you do. But if you're exhausted, you're only capable of giving them 50%, 60%. They deserve 100%, even if that means, you know, you do go to the gym or you take that 30 minutes to meditate or go for the walk or listen to music or journal. I mean, there's so many different ways to find self-care that doesn't have to be scheduled, that doesn't have to be strict or rigid or take a ton of time. So one of the biggest pieces I'm trying to get out there right now with Flow, again, is this idea of bodyfulness, which is just learning how to listen to your own nervous system. So the idea of being all in is an idea. It's heady, and that's great. And we need commitment. So I'm not saying that all in is bad in any way, shape, or form, but kind of as you were referring to it of like, I can only do it if I know that like I'm in and I'm doing the whole thing and going to the best gym and getting the best teacher and doing it all. Great. But what if you just did it when you needed it, when your body was like, whoa, you know, back to a space of energy. Our nervous system responds to everything: temperature, sound, sensation, other people's energy. Our nervous system is talking to us all the time. We don't often listen to it. We tend to think like the head is the only thing that's like, where do I need to go? What do I need to be doing versus our being. Like our being is coming from our body, our sensation of, if I'm really stressed out right now, what can I do to like calm it down so that I can show up for this person a little differently as opposed to like just reacting. So I don't know, do you know Viktor Frankl at all?
No.
He's a Holocaust survivor. He wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. Amazing. Okay. So sad and so powerful. And I hope I get the quote right. I know the core of it I'll get right, but in essence, it's between circumstance and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our opportunity for freedom and growth. So in other words, something happens, whatever that might be, our nervous system reacts to that. So somebody cuts you off when you're driving, we get ignited. There is a pause, right? We instinctively either, well, we're in Jersey, so we honk the horn or flip them off, something ridiculous, right? So we have that pause and we don't often recognize it. So this idea of like reaction, can we find the pause? Can we find that space between, do I really care that person just cut me off? I'm activated, but no, at the end of the day, like, you're a jerk. What am I going to do about it? Change your response. So, like my family members, right? You know how much you love each other. It's all based on love more often than not. Yet you can butt heads. You can like trigger each other pretty easily with those that we know the most. That said, it's like because there's so much trigger, there's so much activation around that, it's like that family member can sneeze and you're like, what's wrong with you? Where a complete stranger could walk in, do the same thing, and you're like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, how can I help you? Right? Like we respond to different people. And that's because there's just
come closer to them.
There's activation in the nervous system that we're not releasing or we're not listening to. So this idea of resiliency, the idea of like, how do we change? How do we shift who we are, how we show up for other people? How do we find flow in our lives is really, it stems from learning to listen to our nervous system, find when we get activated. Is this an appropriate response? If so, keep going. Or am I overreacting? What tools do I have to kind of bring this down? So, beloved family member sneezes, you get activated, pause, let me take a deep breath. Let me do some tapping, grounding. Let me do some Qigong work. Let me bring in the core values of yoga. So maybe there's like a little body stretch, finding something that allows the body to actually deactivate a little bit. Then over here, you change your response. So that's kind of the idea of that Viktor Frankl quote of like reaction, pause, listen to your body, change it if you can, deactivate or activate, like bring your nervous system up, and then respond differently. That pause could be 5 to 10 seconds, or it could be days or years, depending on the situation. But at the end of the day, we don't often listen to our bodies. We get caught in our heads and we're very mindful, which is great, yet that's like 20% of who we are. I don't know the exact number. Don't quote me on that.
Right.
But it's a small part of our largest existence. So Dr. Christine Caldwell works in the realm of bodyfulness. Her book is awesome. But again, it's this idea of the mind is the body. So when we learn to listen to the body, we can learn to de-stress in a totally different way with tools that we don't need to go crazy all in on and have this like regimented structure with. It's, whoa, either I'm hot or my shoulders are up or I'm tense or like, why am I responding like this? Oh, or maybe you're really getting to me. I'm going to just put my hands under the table and give a couple of these and just like let my nervous system go from like a 7 to a 5. And now I'm going to choose my words maybe a little differently, or my body language a little differently, or my presence. I can show up for you a little differently. So it's really, for me at least, this idea of like, it's never about what we do. It's always about who we are. How are we showing up in our lives for ourselves and therefore other people, and giving back to whether that's our job or community or wellness at large, and the overall ripple effects of that. Yeah. There's gonna be a lot of editing in there because I was all over the place.
No. Please, no.
Yeah.
That was. Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I could just tell. I love seeing. I love seeing folks when they're passionate about what they're doing, or just passionate in general about anything.
Appreciate it.
I really love that. In line with what you're saying, in terms of like it being balanced, your wellness, that is something that I struggle with, and I think as I'm listening to you, I'm reflecting back on why is it so regimented for me? Why is that? And I think a lot of it has to do with my career in the military, where things were regimented, things were on a timeline. You go work out at this time. You go do this at this time. Yeah. And I think I really, number one, I'm so glad that I'm able to reflect on that and just know that, to your point, it is balance. It shouldn't be this thing where you're only taking care of yourself at 6 a.m. No, totally. You should be taking care of yourself throughout the day.
Absolutely.
And to your point, right? Like you're only as good to yourself as right, putting yourself first.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned that on the podcast as well. In line with that, I am going to do my best to continue to go on this journey of making this more balanced, because at the moment that's something that I struggle with, and it goes all the way into, it even affects me in the way that I eat.
For sure.
Because in my mind, if I'm not what I call dialed in, I'll just eat whatever I want, because I'm like, I'm not dialed in at the moment. However, that can easily progress itself into 2 days, 3 days, months,
Yep.
I'm not dialed in.
Yep.
Well, if it was something balanced, then you don't technically, in my mind, after listening to what you just said, you don't need to be dialed in, because this is just part of your vibration.
Totally.
This is part of your energy. I'm going to do my
Yeah.
best. I'm going to do my best.
And that's all we can do. And it's overwhelming, especially, wellness is a giant umbrella of, you have your nutrition, you have your hydration, you have your sleep, you have your exercise, you have your mental well-being, you have this idea of bodyfulness, which is all bringing all those realms together. It's a heck of a lot easier to not worry about any of that, or, to take the time for yourself is hard. And we often feel like, well, as long as I show up for everybody else, I don't have the time to take care of myself, or to get whatever it might be, to eat right, to go to the gym. Like, yeah, it's a heck of a lot easier to not be dialed in than to be dialed in. And I guess what I'm hoping to get out there with flow is this idea of like macro level getting dialed in. Like, yeah, balancing nutrition, sleep, hydration, rest, recovery, exercise, mental well-being, stimulated at work. What's your purpose? Yeah, we do need to know all those pieces and do our best to balance all of that. And yet throughout the course of the day, like, that's huge. That's important. Do our best to balance. Yet it's the micro moments that matter just as much. And those are the ones that easily get overlooked. It might be like, I'm going to go to the gym at this time and crush my workout, or I'm going to commit to going to yoga or trying this new Qigong practice. I'm already freaking out that I'm home and I'm supposed to do it for 3 months in order for it to sink in. And I've been home and it's been 3 days and I've only done a quarter of it. I'm like, I missed it. Damn.
Yeah.
Like, I messed up. And you're like, come on. Like, that's not the purpose of it at all. Like,
Right.
if I'm moving energy, I can do that all day long, to your point. And we miss the micro moments. And those are the key pieces, again, to find our own flow. So like, how do we have a high vibration in life? How do we find our flow to serve others? It's those macro is important, but it's the micro, which in fun. So basically humans are the only animals, if you will, or however you want to look at it, mammals, energy beings, scientifically speaking, that don't generally shake off energy. So in short, humans tend to hold on to our energy. You get cut off, you get mad, we hold on to it. You get in a fight with somebody, maybe you fight back, maybe you don't. And verbally, at least I'm saying, you're like, we hold other people's energy often, yet. So fireworks go off, your dog gets scared. What's it do? What's the first thing it does after?
It shakes. It
Totally
shivers.
Every other being, trees, dogs, animals, every other thing, however you want to say it, generally speaking, but humans shake it off, right? We get activated. Dogs then go shake. They get rid of it, and then they're right back on. Like, you get petrified they get scared from the fireworks. Boom, 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 shaking, maybe during it, freeze, and then they shake it off and they move on. Humans don't often let go of that energy. We don't shake it off. So this whole idea, again, of finding flow, finding those micro moments, how throughout the day, if you can't do the macro pieces, how do you find the micro, which is tapping, grounding, sensing, breathing, just even moving your energy. Some of the Qigong movements of, let me take that deep breath, or I'm exhausted, let me increase my inhales so I can wake up before I go pick my kids up at school or go talk to my boss. So the more we can learn to listen to where our nervous system is, if we're activated, how do we deactivate? We have tools that could take 30 seconds, 3 minutes. And yeah, if you can carve out 30 minutes, great. But we have these micro opportunities all day long to track the wave of our nervous system. If we're up here, how do we deactivate? Or we're just exhausted. How can I get myself back up here so I have a higher state of being all day long? And yeah, there's so many tools to do that. And that's what I'm hoping with Flow, to kind of get out there of like, what tools do I have to kind of ride this wave a little differently?
Again, I got a bunch of things I'm thinking about.
Sorry, I get caught in the story.
No. Have you ever gone to like a retreat? Like in Costa Rica, they do these like. Have you ever done anything like that? For trainings than running one. That is a hope that Flow right now will go start offering retreats. That said, I did a 14-day yoga training down in Costa Rica, which was amazing. I actually did it was like a week-long acro yoga training down in Costa Rica as well. What's acro yoga?
It's partner yoga. So it's kind of like little kid airplane rides, but way cooler. It's fun. That's actually a great modality for building resiliency and trust. Again, Flow also is the team element of it. So that's something that's a ton of fun. But those were two of the retreats, if you will, / trainings that I've done. And then I've done a ton of different meditation retreats. Just came back from the Qigong training and retreat up in Omega.
Where is that, upstate?
Upstate, yeah, in Rhinebeck, New York.
Rhinebeck.
Yeah.
That's not the Adirondacks, right?
No, more like Hudson Valley, not far.
Right.
So I've done many different retreats there. Kripalu is another one that offers great retreats locally. So, I feel like I'm always learning, always trying to learn something new, do something different. And it's intentional to carve out time to go to that retreat. And that's, where my family will roll their eyes and be like, well, you're single, you don't have kids. I don't have a week to go hang out in upstate New York and meditate for a week. Like, who can do that? I'm very blessed to be able to do that. And it's intentional to carve out the time to do that. So I will say, like, anyone with planning and can make that happen with time and saving money. And I recognize that, but it doesn't have to be something that big. Like, yes, that is great. I'm so blessed again to be able to do that, but don't miss those micro moments all day long to really just learn to listen to your own body. So there's, I won't get into the teaching aspect of like, what is interoception? How do we learn to listen to our nervous system? Like, for those people that are out there, like, what is she even talking about? Learning whatever you feel comfortable speaking on. Yeah,
I'm listening. Please,
you're the
just
best. Yeah.
take your time. This is what we're supposed to be doing on Spark.N.Stride, right?
I love it.
If you notice, there's no clocks in here.
Perfect.
There's not a clock.
Yeah,
I have a watch on, but there's no clocks. So
awesome.
Please, more.
Yeah, I think it's an important piece for people to, like. Again, this is what I'm trying to get out with Flow. So this idea, bodyfulness kind of being the umbrella, like wellness, if you will. So we have our 5 senses that we resonate with all the time: taste, touch, smell, hearing. That's how we kind of operate in the world. But we also have a sixth sense and a 7th sense. So sixth sense is getting a little more popular, which is this idea of proprioception. So very yoga based, like where am I in space? How do I move my body? So, for example, if I'm on the lacrosse field and a defender's coming at me, I don't have to mentally go through, turn your shoulder, turn your hip, step left with your left foot, 90 degrees, spin, turn, dodge. It's like someone comes at you, your body moves without thinking about it. So proprioception is how do you move in space, awareness of how your body is, kind of like in the bubble around you. interoception is our seventh sense, which is how do we learn to listen to our body, our internal world. So how do you know you have to go to the bathroom? I don't know. I've never thought about it before. I guess maybe my bladder's full. Maybe I get uncomfortable. Think about it. How do you know? It's a little different for everybody. Or how do you know you're hungry? My stomach growls. Maybe I get lightheaded. Maybe I get a little hangry. Like, how, I don't know. Like, it's, again, different for everybody. Same holds true with our emotions. So our body feels something, our mind thinks it, and then we emote it out. Emotion. Like, if you break it down, emote is the expression of what our body is actually feeling. So our body, someone cuts you off, back to that Viktor Frankl quote, we respond or we react, So you get cut off, innate reaction, there's like this little fire inside of us, and then we emote that out. So our body does emotion. Our body does anger. What's wrong with you? Or our body does joy. Dad, welcome home. So good to see you. Whatever it might be. And we often just think of emotion as like, what's going on in here? We're very heady. And that's great. So how do we work with that from a cognitive level? There's psychotherapy, awesome, lots of different ways, bodyfulness or somatic experiencing, or, there's so many other fields of study that can also say, what happens if we take a bottom up approach? How do we learn to listen to the body to release then what's going on in the mind? So if our body does anger, how do we pause, recognize that, like, oh, I'm hot and I'm feeling like a little fire in here. My shoulders come up. I clench my fists. My jaw gets tight. Like, how often do we recognize that we get stuck here as humans? And then we're like, oh, I need a massage or I need yoga. Great, get it. And yet, if throughout the day we recognize that we do this, oh man, I'm doing anger here. There it is. Oh. Like, those are the micro tools that we have access to all day long, but we pay no attention to. Our mind is so busy doing. We're not feeling, right? So when I say feeling, it's not necessarily emotion. It's our body's interoceptive or visceral response to the world around us, to our reactions to anything. There's a rainbow. Yes. Oh my God. I love this.
Yeah.
And we don't even recognize that. It's like we know it, but we don't allow ourselves to feel, or we're afraid to feel, that opens up a whole nother like conversation of trauma. And that said, the body can often, all the body wants to do is release. So feel the joy, and our body wants to release the tension or the trauma. And trauma is a whole nother loaded conversation. I know so many people are like, well, I don't have any trauma. Trauma is anything that happens when we're thinking about it from a nervous system perspective. Trauma is anything that happens too much, too soon, or too fast. So we're riding, like, if this is a healthy nervous system, activation, deactivation. I have a lacrosse game in a half hour. My adrenaline's pumping. I can't wait to get on the field. You play your game. Now you relax a little bit. Oh, now I have to get ready for my homework. Let me wake up. Let me get my work done. Now I have to go to bed, right? So like, this is healthy. There's a range of resiliency that our nervous system does all day long. Trauma is anything that peaks the nervous system. So if this is a range of resiliency, if we get caught up here, whether that might, again, just be getting cut off, like lowercase t trauma, all the way up to, family in town. My brother was actually just sick. Thank God he's okay. But, for like 3 days, we didn't know. So your nervous system is just firing for those 3 days. Like we are caught on all those symptoms of like high activation. So that's body temperature. That's, serotonin just pumping, shoulders up. Or for some people, you get stuck off, right? Like something happens and I don't want to leave the house. I don't want to socialize with people. All I want to do is eat. I don't want to stick with my routine. Our nervous system gets shut off. So trauma can cause us to get caught up here or down here. And this idea of interoception or bodyfulness is just the awareness or that pause between, like 5, I can handle healthy activation, might be a 3 or 4, but whoa. Like, again, my family's been home. I have 10 siblings, so I say this fairly lightheartedly. A lot of activation. Oh man, I'm up here. Nothing I can do about it because so much keeps happening. Too much happened too quickly for me to find the pause, deactivate. I missed the pause. Now I'm up here. Okay, I can stay up here now that I've recognized it. Or what tools do I have to at least get from like an 8, maybe back to a 6? Family's still home. Might be hard. I'm going to probably get stuck in this space for a couple more days. Okay, but what am I doing moment to moment, or at least a couple times a day while I'm in my car stuck at a red light? Can I take some power breaths? Can I take the dog for a 10-minute walk? Can I take my journal and write 1 page of whatever's going on in my head? Can I put my headphones on and listen to my favorite song? Can I do tapping? Can I do grounding? Can I just feel my feet? Can I go put my feet in the ocean? Can I feel my feet in the grass in my backyard? All of those things we all can do for 10 seconds, 3 minutes. Okay, at least I'm at a 6 and I'm not firing back up to a 10. Maybe they get you down to a 5 until I can get to yoga class and get it down, or go to the gym, or, do the bigger thing, sit and meditate for 40 minutes or, whatever that might be to really deactivate. So I guess kind of coming full circle, interoception is the awareness of what's going on in our nervous system and learning to read the signs of our own emotions. Like our body does feeling, our body does anger, our body does joy, our body does feel, our mind emotes. And if we can catch that moment in between this reaction, our nervous system reacts to everything all day long. But can I find that pause and just be aware of my response? Sometimes we catch it as it's happening. Sometimes we catch it hours later when we're up here. Of course, it happens all the time, right? What we don't want is days, weeks, months, years stuck up here or down here, right? And that happens to the best of us.
It's so cool hearing you. You're not making any of this complicated.
Trying.
You're not. This is extremely just knowledge-based, I guess is what it is, right? So you're kind of like, thank you so much for sharing that. By the way, I did put my feet in the grass yesterday.
Yes.
So I was for some reason, I was walking out to my fire pit. I was having a coffee. I was like, I should just take my shoes off.
Yes.
So it was like, it felt good.
Love it.
If anybody's listening to this, take your shoes off. Like, go walk in the grass.
Absolutely.
Like, it was like, I enjoyed it. You know,
that's huge. And the most important part, like, I could talk and teach and bring the science into it. There's so much there. Yet, if you remember nothing from all of this, where's my awareness? What am I choosing to pay attention to? Meaning, you could put your feet in the grass and still be mentally percolating on whatever happened that made you want to put your feet in the grass versus this thing happened. I feel the activation, pause. I'm aware that I'm putting my feet in the grass. I feel the dewdrops, or I feel the support of the ground beneath me. Where's my awareness? So can I literally just for that moment be aware of my feet on the grass? While I take that inhale, can I just be aware that I'm inhaling or feeling the sun on my face? So awareness is the most critical part in that whole kind of, I don't want to make it like a set path. It's not, it's not a curriculum. It's not a path. It's just listening to our body. But the awareness is the most important part at the end of the day of, man, I'm aware of just the grass on my feet. I'm aware of just the sun on my face. And that is what lets the nervous system reset. That's like a deep breath for the nervous system to like deconnect from the mind. Reset. And then move on. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's the key part. So
Yes.
definitely go put your feet in the grass or in the sand. And just, that's where the mindfulness kicks in. And again, the difference between mindfulness and bodyfulness. Mindfulness is that moment where you're like turning the mind off, present moment, awareness without judgment. And bodyfulness is sort of taking that to the next level and saying, but what am I experiencing in that pause, in that moment where I'm mindfully walking in the grass? And so my nervous system resets, like putting those two pieces together with your awareness.
Wow.
If you remember nothing else.
Yes, for sure.
That's the key. That's the kind of golden moment there.
Well, with flow, I believe it's young girls, right?
Everything.
Okay.
I would say as you mentioned earlier, when it was like building the business, like who's your target? How much money do you need to make? Who's your target audience? Who's going to do your marketing? All those pieces. The target audience was always the hardest part. Exactly like you said, everybody. I'm learning all these awesome things. I just really hope that, if I wasn't around tomorrow, it would be like I helped a couple people tap into their truest selves and shared some skills with like how to just love life a little bit more. I want to give that to everybody. So target audience is everyone. That said, because of my coaching background, I started predominantly working with female college athletes, mostly lacrosse players. Then I got into, soccer team, field hockey, everything else. So predominantly I've worked with females. However, I've worked with Google. I've worked with Boy Scouts. I've worked with Manasquan's boys ice hockey team. So all over the map. Say
no, that's because I'm thinking to myself, if I was because what I've seen on Instagram was like all this inspirational stuff with like young girls, and I have a daughter, she's 6 years old, and I'm just thinking to myself, how cool would it be to hear and learn this, to receive this knowledge on a weekly basis, or like that's gotta be an awesome feeling to know that you're putting that out into the atmosphere, right? That you're putting that energy out to these impressionable young folks, and they're absorbing it. That's gotta feel so. Is that fulfilling for you?
I mean, that's it was really interesting in this last Qigong training. So, absolutely, it's the greatest thing in the entire world. And at this training, the master teacher, Robert Pang, was amazing. And he kind of put things very simply in humans often get caught up in who am I? Or what is my purpose? We ask that's like an infinity loop that we get caught in. And I know for sure, I don't often struggle with who am I, but I am so honestly blinded by my purpose, which I feel, and I don't mean flow as a business, but to your point of just like, I just want everyone to be like their best selves, like love life. It's so short. It's over in the blink of an eye. Love it. Play, get out there, feel great. Like be the best expression from here, from the bottom of your toes all the way up. And our master teacher this weekend essentially said, none of that matters. The purpose is connection with others, connection with like the universe and the earth. And that's a little bit Qigong of, it's not spiritual as much as energetically based. He went as far as to say, there's the heavens, there's the universe, there's earth in the middle, and humans are the only kind of space in between that have consciousness. So energetically speaking, we're not any different than the dog that needs to shake the energy off, but we are the only beings that have consciousness, meaning we have the choice to connect or not connect. The dogs don't have that conscious choice. Like they're almost luckier, right? Like they get to just shake it off. And it's like, that was scary. Whoa, I can go sleep now. Humans can choose to hold on to that or to let it go. And so his whole point here is don't get caught up in the who am I? What is my purpose? Our only purpose is to stay opened and receive energy from the universe, connect with it, and bring it back out to the earth. And that can be just an energetic cycle of connecting with the sun, letting your own energy stay open and your channels flow. Like you said, like when you're in the zone, right? That is flow, right? Like you're aware of the world around you. Your energy is soaring. You're ready to give back. Like you're showing up. You're in a state of flow. The whole purpose of the name of flow. And that meaning has just gotten deeper and deeper in the 9 years that I've been doing this. But it's kind of receive from the universe, channel that, find your own flow, and then give it back out to the earth or the world around you. And so to oversimplify what he said, that's everybody's purpose. It's not who am I? It's not what is my purpose in this lifetime. It's like, how do I channel that energy, positive universal energy in, find my own flow, give it back out. So that's, again, energetically speaking, and we can make that as deep or as light as we want and get caught up in that. And his whole thing is kind of, right, don't suddenly make that mean, well, what do I do? Like, what's my flow? How do I find it? Don't get caught up in that. It's really keep your nervous system calm, balanced, or recognize when it's activated, rebalance it. And that's our purpose. It can be that simple. Easier said than done. Trust me.
Yeah, no.
I've been up here for days, so I'm not trying to preach.
Yeah,
It's like
no. So I've had different instances where my nervous system clearly, right, like was activated and in a heightened state. Last year was the first time I ever had a panic attack. And I had to get a stress test. I had to do a stress test. And right after the stress test, they do like an echogram, which is like an ultrasound of your heart, right? To make sure that all the chambers are, firing off at the right cylinders. And in any case, it was a Friday. It was my wife's birthday weekend. So it was like a whole lot of stuff going on. And then also the following week, I was driving down to Alabama for school or training for the Air Force, which was like 4 weeks long. It was like an academy. It was like a leadership academy. So I go to the hospital. I get all the tests and all this stuff done. I ask the technician who was doing the echogram, I'm like, hey, is like everything okay? And she was an older woman, and she basically said, your doctor will call you, you know. I'm like, okay. So then I said, I would expect that everything's fine because it's like a Friday. I don't think you would just let me leave here and drive home. You know, like that's my wishful thinking side, right? For all I know, she could have been like, yeah, whatever. Like, but in any case, it was like a 45-minute drive from the hospital back to my house. Now, I had a bunch of people flying in town for my wife's birthday weekend. The entire ride, I start to worry because I didn't get the answer or the answers that I was hoping to get, right? So now I'm in this, I don't even really know how to explain it, just a constant worry for 45 minutes. So I get home and now everyone's asking me, hey, how was your, I heard you went to the hospital today for a stress test. So now I have to like relive.
Totally.
So we were going to dinner that night. So I'm like, hey, like I gotta like get my stuff together. Excuse me, you know. So I go into my bedroom and I sit at the foot of my bed. And now the reason why I went into my bedroom is because I got really dizzy. I got really, really dizzy to the point where I scared myself thinking that I was gonna pass out.
Yeah.
So I go to my bedroom. I sit down on the edge of the bed, and I felt foggy. It was like this brain fog. It felt worse than being like hungover, but it was in that wheelhouse. So my wife comes in and she's like, "What are you doing? Like, why you're being rude? There's people here,
right?
What like now?" And I'm telling her like, "There's something wrong." So one of the worst things or feelings to have is to tell someone that there's something wrong, and for that person to not acknowledge it.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And it's nothing towards my wife, but she sees a perfectly put together man,
Absolutely.
right? She's like, what are you talking about? There's nothing wrong with you.
Yep.
You have to be present. So we go out to dinner, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this is lasting all through dinner.
Yep.
It lasts the entire weekend. It lasts the entire drive to Alabama. I stop off in Charlotte and stay the night at my buddy's house. And I told my buddy, I was like, hey man, like, I don't know what's going on with me, but something's wrong. And this is another person who's like, dude, you look fine.
Yeah.
And I'm just, but super understanding. The next morning, I don't know if it was coupled with anxiety, but it was so elevated. I checked myself into the hospital in Charlotte. And they ran a bunch of tests on me. And the doctor's like, dude, there's nothing wrong with you. Your blood pressure's a little high, but you're not nowhere near, having a stroke or anything.
Yep.
Whatever you're going through, it's mental. I'm like, okay. He's like, I think you should go back home to New Jersey. Now, mind you, the school that I'm going to for the military, I've waited almost 2 years for this slot.
Yep.
I said, okay. And in my mind, I was like, I'm not driving back to Jersey.
Right.
I just left
Right.
all that stuff.
Right.
Like I'm driving. So, but in any case, the brain fog and that feeling of just not having clarity lasted for like a week. Yeah. So in terms of like the nervous system, everything that you're saying, I really wish we had this conversation last year, because I think I would have been able to adjust myself, like knowing what it is you're saying, having the opportunity to react and pause and that kind of thing. So I want to thank you for taking out the time to come by Spark.N.Stride and just sharing your passion, because there's so many folks that I feel are going to be able to relate to your message. And if not relate, like there's definitely going to be some enlightenment in terms of how do we flow.
Love it.
how do we get things out? How do we adjust that energy, that having that pause, or being able to reflect on the pause. Is there anything that you would like to share with the folks that are listening, or like your community of people that follow you at the moment? And I'm sure that you will, some folks will learn about your mission and what it is you're trying to accomplish with Flow. But please share anything that you would like for us to get out. Any Instagram handle, social media, your website. Just please.
Thank you. I think the piece just kind of coming back to your story, and I bet so many people resonate with that, and for lots of reasons, COVID and so much more. There's more stress on us than ever, and this upcoming generation, your daughter and so many more, panic attacks are being diagnosed more and more. We go not from like nervous or scared. It goes to like, I am anxious to I am panicking. Like there's a huge shift in how our nervous systems respond. Like we kind of here, and the next thing you know, we're up here. That's what it feels like. I just want to remind everyone, like, there's a lot of things that happen before we get up to here. So if you're curious about how to learn to track that wave, check out Flow. So my website is flowleadershipacademy.com, or that's my Instagram handle as well, Flow Leadership Academy. The tools, so recognizing this idea of bodyfulness and what I'm trying to get out there. I work with teams and or individuals. I'm sure a lot of people are asking how, right? Like this makes sense. There's so much science I could share as well about the bigger picture, the macro level. But what are those tools? What are those little micro moments? Tapping, grounding, sensing, breathing. All of those are easy, they're quick, and I would love to share them with anybody, whether on another session or I share them on my Instagram and website. And again, working with groups or individuals if you want to learn the skill set or the tools for how to learn to listen to your nervous system, how to kind of ride that wave, because it's inevitable. Like we are going to have stress. How do we recognize it? What tools can we access in the heat of the moment and or once we recognize it? So the doctor looking at you and saying, you're fine. You're like, I'm not. And, for him or her to say it's all mental, actually about 99 things happened before it became mental. And so if you learn how to catch it, like we feel it and then we emote it. So if the mind is the thing that's in a tailspin, the mind is not the thing that's going to get you out of the tailspin. Like the Tasmanian devil can't stop itself. It's like, let's tap into the body to slow the mind down and refine that sense of balance. So Flow is part of Flow. I do team building and resiliency and cultural development still. And a lot of the one-on-one work for teaching the tools for kind of through how do you find your own flow through bodyfulness and then bring that back to your team. So it can be a one-on-one or a group dynamic, but the tools are there. There was lots of things that could have happened throughout that process to at least slow it down or create awareness to that and then create change.
Wow.
So we all have, and we can all do it. That's the other part. We all have the time. This can take 30 seconds or a couple minutes throughout the day. Obviously, the more time you have, like anything else, the better. The more you do it, the more you practice it, the more impactful it is. So, if you meditate or you do the breath work, you could take 3 breaths and like literally I can feel it in my nervous system. Like my kidneys are like, yes, here it comes. Yes, yes. Like I'm talking to you. We are stressed. And they feel that breath coming and it's like, oh. So the more you do it, you don't have to take 30 minutes over time. Like I could be stuck in traffic. That person could cut me off. You take the 2 deep breaths and your organs literally learn how to receive the tapping, the grounding, the breath work. So anyone can do it. This is just part of being human. It's human nature. We all have the capacity, and it's not hard. You don't have to get trained. It doesn't take a long time to learn it, and you all have the time to do it. It's like the most important part, right? It doesn't have to be regimented.
Brighde, thank you so much for that. That was like so. I want to go do yoga right now.
Yeah, let's go.
Like I literally want to leave this studio and go sign up. I might just go sign up.
Let's go.
Brighde, thank you so much again for sharing your passion, explaining to us what your goal and your mission is with Flow. I wish you nothing but the best. If there's anything that I could help with, please use me as an ally or as an advocate. If you have a message or you want to promote something, please come back to Spark.N.Stride. We'd love to have you. If there's anything that I can do to get you in touch with the veteran community, please reach out to me. You know how to get a hold of me.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, again, thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah.
And
appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
You got it. Stay Spark.
Heavy duty.
It's much.
Spark.N.Stride. Spark.N.Stride.